Windows 95 was only a somewhat protected operating system in that things could still share and see each other's memory. Not at the Win32 level, but all the Win31. Actually, I don't even know that much about Windows anymore because, I knew it really well in the Windows XP days. Yeah, I was thinking that when I had my own company and we had the software business, because at one point we had the millionth customer barbecue, I remember. Hey, I'm Dave. Welcome to Shop Talk, home of the spiral lamp that everybody talks about all the time. In other matters, what I've been doing this week, I've been trying a bunch of pointless stuff that didn't work out for me, like trying to run a modern VAX disk controller for DSSI and a PDP-11, and it kind of worked, but I couldn't get the software to support it, and so I won't bore you with all the details. I think we should probably just introduce my co-host, Glenn, and jump right into this week's questions. How you doing, Glenn?
I am doing well, Dave. Thank you. How are you?
Doing well myself. Good to hear it.
Yep. Excellent. Questions. Yeah, we got questions. Not quite the 8,000 comments that we had on the previous one there, but that made my work a little bit lighter, which was appreciated and fine. So we're going to actually we're going to start with a bunch of questions from that episode there. So Steve Mason, Canada, very specific there, says, I love the way you guys responded to the less than polite jabs in the comments. Class and humor. I think that's what we were aiming for, so I'm glad he saw it that way. And then he gets into the talking speed, which is a big comment from the last one. And again, he mentioned what a lot of people do. There's a speed setting in the playback options that takes care of that. It says he's Canadian, so sadly English is his only language. I guess it'd be Western Canadian maybe. But his hearing isn't what it was, nor is his brain. So yes, he does find sometimes that you're a bit fast, Dave. But he said he would never complain about it. Then he's got a comment. Glenn, you look familiar. Ever work in Calgary? Nope.
But you look Canadian, so.
Yeah, I apparently sound pretty Canadian too.
When I was in second or third grade? So it'd be like third grade, let's say. So I'm 8, which makes it 1976. And we're in class, we're watching a CBC film Canada, those vignettes you'd watch in class. And it's about the Chinatown market in Vancouver. And my best friend is Chinese. He's from Hong Kong, or his parents are from Hong Kong. He's from across the alley.
One of 3 Chinese families in Regina, probably at the time, or it seemed like it.
Yeah. Anyway, she pauses the video or the film strip projector or whatever the hell is running and says, Tony, do you know any of these people? And I'm 8 years old, and I realize that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. These people live thousands of miles away. It was just at 8 years old, I already knew that was a crazy thing to say, and yet it stuck with me as soon as it came up. But
wow, yeah, that's cringeworthy.
Indeed.
I think there's a few of those stories, folks on airplanes and stuff. Oh, you're from Canada. Where are you? Oh, Toronto. Oh, I got a friend in Vancouver. Do you know them?
I got a ton of that when I first moved here. Everybody assumed, of course, that I was from Vancouver or Toronto, which would be 90% of Canada, apparently. And then occasionally I would say, no, I'm from Regina, which would always elicit a laugh. And it's true, and that is how you pronounce it. But if I said, do you know where that is? They'd be, no. I'm like, do you know where Moose Jaw is? Oh, yeah. Is it near Moose Jaw? It's like people seem to know Moose Jaw for some reason, which is a town of 40, or a city of 40,000 people or 50,000, somewhere in that ballpark. So it's weird to be referenced relative to that. But
Fun. Oh, we could go on about these Canadian stories. Let's get back into some serious stuff. No Fuse, 8771. Says, you helped work on Windows? Are you sure you're a tech expert?
Well, I'm an expert on Windows, doesn't make me smart. Actually, I don't even know that much about Windows anymore because, I knew it really well in the Windows XP days, and it's been a long time since XP. And of course, I run the current version, but I'm not plowing through every menu and control panel setting like I would in the olden days. Now I do what I need to do to get it to work and do what I want it to do and work reliably and so on. And so, I'm probably not as familiar. And Windows is bigger than it used to be too. So, yeah,
you can't be as learned or knowledgeable as you used to be, but I think you're still at the upper end of people who understand some of the more detailed elements of it. So
probably I'll take that. But I remember in the XP days.
Well, I sure hope you are, for crying out loud.
Well, let's say before XP, because when I was doing tech support for the phone company during my college internships, I knew Windows well enough, which is be Windows 3.1 in those days. I could be talking people through the dialogue, and I was, okay, go to settings, now control panel, and now printers, and then click add printer, and LPT1. You know, you've seen the dialogue so many times, they think you're walking through it with them and you're just doing it from memory. You know the entire operating system and all the UI because you've been through it so many times. Now it's much bigger. That would be harder. But
yeah. LPT1, wow, that was just a like flashback for me. What, 25 years ago or something? Yeah.
Line printer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the T is. Maybe it's just for print, but
I don't know what it stood for, but LPT1, man, that's where you sent your print jobs. So, yeah. Neat. Okay. The Anj Lewis or Anjay Lewis. Hello, Dave. I'm a blind YouTuber myself, and I found YouTube captions to be a bit, so we were talking about speed and closed captioning. He finds the YouTube captions to be a bit on the crap side. He says he uses an AI in the form of a product called Mac Whisper, which uses OpenAI's Whisper model on his M1 Max, which is also the machine that he's running Olama on, including DeepSeek R1 and others. So there you go. He and his wife do a podcast, blah, blah, blah. YouTube just mumbles and jumbles it all. On Windows, you can do the same transcription using an app called Buzz, if memory serves. It says it uses the same Whisper model, so perhaps that's an option. He says the model that he uses is the large V2, which is about 3 gig or so. He said it runs quite quick, even on this new, now old Apple Silicon hardware. So he said he hopes that helps a little. So.
Does he say what his YouTube podcast name is?
No. Well, so his name is the Anj Lewis, the ONJ Louis or Lewis.
Well, maybe Google it, check it out. I'll take a look at his channel later because I'm curious to see what kind of content he's producing, because I think that's really incredible that you can take a visual medium like YouTube, excuse me, and have a guy that is visually impaired or blind creating content for it. I'm a little confused about closed captioning in that role because captions are something you read visually, but maybe he's using software to convert them to audio. But why would you take my audio to text to audio instead of just using the audio? So I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I've sort of learned through this, again, you know, autism is a spectrum of stuff. Blindness is also a spectrum of stuff too. That blindness doesn't mean you know, legally blind and have some input. So he might be able to see the captions when they're this big across the screen, and he's got his, So blind doesn't necessarily mean he has no vision, but yeah. So he said he does a podcast with his wife, and even though he doesn't really understand how to designate speakers, it seems to just pick up on what's said. So. Yeah. But yeah, pretty neat.
I remember speaking of grade 3, like grade 2 and 3, because I was clever as a kid, I would often be done first, right? And so instead of having you just sit there and be hyperactive or whatever the hell I was doing, they would assign me to do other things, you know, sharpen the pencils or whatever. But a lot of the time we had some visually impaired kids, and they had these massive magnifying lighted readers, and they could use them on their books. And so I would, you know, show them where we're working, and they would stomp the thing on the thing and then read the book. And I saw somebody doing that in a restaurant a couple of weeks ago, and I was really like transported back. It's like I hadn't seen anybody do that since I was like 8 years old. But so there are always, you know, optical, and now there are digital ways to help improve that stuff too. So
yeah, the technology. I mean, just having like an iPhone or an Android phone, but that capacity probably has enriched so many people's lives where they've got visual or other, disabilities or issues. And
yeah, because you used to have to go to the library and get like big type editions. Now you can just pinch on your iPad and set the font size to whatever you want. So.
Yeah, and then you get with the Google glasses and all that stuff, and you get some visual cues right in where you without having to haul extra equipment around, must be pretty helpful for a lot of folks. So yeah.
Right.
Neato. The blindness. I remember the woman at church, and she'd come to the school a couple of times, and she had a seeing eye dog and the watch. And I remember, probably about the same grade 3, grade 4, and yet she'd flip her watch case open and feel what time it was. I still remember.
Oh, Braille watch.
Thinking, Well,
or
I don't
Braille,
know.
You feel the hands, I guess.
Yeah, it was just that the cover on it was a flap, so you could open up and feel with your hands, or feel with your finger where the hands were, and tell time that way. But it's kind of like, I bet they don't make those anymore.
Well, they may. I don't know. They probably got a better way, but
we're all over the place here already. Yeah. Ryan Knopp, will you put your show as a video podcast?
It is a video podcast.
Isn't that kind of what we're doing? Yeah.
It's also on Spotify and Apple, isn't it? Or they may not be quite up to date on those, but I know there's many episodes available on both.
It is up to date. I am not as reliable and regular as I It's not like to be getting up. So sometimes they're up sort of the, Friday or Saturday. And I think this week I forgot. So they didn't go up until probably Monday or something.
Right.
But yeah. Yep. I get them up there and they're all 22 episodes so far, 23. Yep.
Cool.
LL928. Did you use the AI DeepSeek dongle to filter all the questions from the previous video? No, we did not.
What's a DeepSeek AI dongle?
I don't know, but I know I didn't use it.
Yeah, but what if I don't know what dongle means and I've been using a dongle all this time?
Oh, there you go. You've tried that a couple times, and I tried it a couple times, and it worked to get, or it seems to work to get some LLM to go in and pick out the questions. I tried to do it just the other day when I saw this question. It said it wouldn't do it for me, but I might have been using Chat GPT instead of the Dave's local language model that I had access to. So
right.
It said, well, it's publicly available, so I suggest you just go through the comments to find that. I'm like, okay, that's kind of what I was asking you to do, but I'll try again. No, so I just pull them off, run them through a filter in Excel, look for question marks, and that's my method. Walk agenda. Oh, maybe that's a play on woke agenda. Why Win95 was so unstable? Why BSOD every 5 minutes? Those are my questions.
Maybe it's walk as in the big bowl.
Yep, that's what I'm thinking. Walk agenda, yeah.
Well, but Windows 95 was only a somewhat protected operating system in that things could still share and see each other's memory. Not at the Win32 level, but all the Win31 apps. So you could kill the Win31 subsystem, not a subsystem, but the Win31 system on that just by writing an app that intentionally crashed or wrote the memory, and that would bring down or hang the 16-bit subsystem. And then in some cases, that would also cripple the system. So because you had to run this old legacy code and it wasn't a fully protected system like NT, when we got to NT, you could still have a 16-bit app crash it, but it would only crash the NTVDM subsystem and restart all your 16-bit apps. All your 32-bit apps were still fine. But I don't think Win95, although it did that too in principle, was quite as robust.
So is that, was that something that was missed in the development of Windows 95 or just something
no, it was,
had to be there because of its backwards compatibility? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So we did tons of work when porting the shell over from even Win95 to Windows NT to remove things like shared memory that not that all memory was shared, but they had shared memory sections amongst different Explorer processes, for example. We got rid of that, replaced it with name pipes or file mappings, I believe. And
so it wasn't until you moved into the NT environment and the 32-bit stuff that then you could address those areas?
Yeah, I did not work on Windows 95 other than Ole and COM. So I was on a product that delivered into Windows 95, but I didn't actually work on, say, the Win95 kernel or anything like that. So my Win95 knowledge is mostly as a user and as of having to had to debug stuff, but not something I did every day. So
was Dave Cutler involved in 95, or he strictly came on to do the NT stuff? That was yeah, that's right. And he would have started just a couple of years ahead of you then, was he?
I think he was 88 as a guess.
Okay.
It's like 5 years.
Eziola. My rude question and answer question is, do you know all the Git CLI commands? Does anyone?
I know like one, git commit -m and then your message. And then if that doesn't work, call Rutger. That's what I do. I invoke the Netherlands Home Office phone number, actual email.
So how much, but Rutger doesn't know all of them yet.
He seems to.
Really, man.
Yeah, he keeps saying he's going to come and give me a whiteboard presentation, and he's been here from the Netherlands twice, and I've got a whiteboard and markers, and twice now we forgot to do it. So I still don't know as much Git as I should.
That's the way he gets invited back again a third time.
Yeah, it's like job security, knowing Git.
There you go.
It doesn't pay very well, but
no, but keep it up though. Yep, it's working. John Single, 1614. Dave, what is the firing order on my 351 Windsor and my 69 Mustang?
Oh. Well, Chevy's 184365572. That's easy. The Ford is weird for two reasons. It's like 137265548 as a guess, but the cylinders are actually numbered different. Like on a Chevy, it goes the 1357 on one side and 2468 on the other. But Fords go 1, 2, 3, 4 on one side and 5, 6, 7, 8 on the other side. So you've got to both know that it's a different firing order and a different numbering order.
System. Wow.
And what did he say? Windsor, right, or Cleveland?
Yeah, it's a Windsor. Yeah.
Okay.
351 Windsor.
Unless you put like a 289 cam in it, then it's like 1.5. I'm not going to remember. It's like 1.542. No, I can't remember the rest of it. That 289 firing order, I've never had one. So
I just like, again, it sort of comes up this, shop talk and blah, blah, blah. And you're a computer guy. And I like the folks that sort of assume or think that you don't know anything about cars and stuff.
Yeah, I know a fair bit about Chevys. I know a lot less about Fords, but
yeah, Pontiacs, your kind of thing.
I just know that from being at gyms, because I remember looking at the firing order on Mustang, and I was trying to figure it out. And Jim says, no, the cylinders are numbered different too. So, when you're wrong and you get burned on a little bit, you tend to remember it. So.
Yeah, exactly. And Jim would have known for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't look in no book to find that out.
Not recently, anyway.
Yeah. The fourth J, quantum computers. What do you know about them?
I know their firing order. It is not.
Is that the quantum Cleveland or the quantum Windsor?
Yeah, exactly. Quantum computing. I don't want to give you the stock answer, but bits are normally 0 or 1. But a quantum bit or a qubit can enter a hyperstate, which has both 0 and 1, and then something magical happens, and it resolves later to a 1 or a 0 when all the bits resolve. So imagine that you had 128 of these qubits and you tried to break an MD5 hash with it. You could magically get them all to resolve to the right bits to break the hash. Now, how that process happens, as I said, is magic to me. But it's also relies on quantum effects and only takes place at super deep temperatures. And we're nowhere near having 128 bits of reliable quantum qubits yet, because they have tons of errors and noise, and the more bits you add, the more noise and errors you get. And so I think was it Google? Somebody just came up with a chip that does a lot of the error correction or mitigation internally in the chip, which allows them to extend the bit depth, but it'll be a while before they can break encryption with them. That's all I care.
Like the Schrodinger's cat of computing?
Yeah, the cat is both live and dead, and then whichever you need in that moment, a live cat or a dead cat, pops out the door.
I think that's the difference. Yeah, in Schrodinger's case, you don't know until you open it. And in the quantum case, you can tell it which one you want it to be.
Well, somehow it resolves to what you want. And again, I'm talking out of my butt. So I'm not going to get any more detailed than that.
Yeah, and I knew even less, so I feel like I'm talking out of your butt. So how's that for a horrible
yeah, that's disturbing.
Description?
Move along.
Cole Simons. Have you ever seen Uncle Bob, Robert Martin, do code refactoring? He speeds it up, but he goes through this thought process. It's very cool. I've seen you do it, but with something like I've seen you do it, but not with something like refactoring. Alternatively, a way you could work through some of your more challenging coding problems. Can you throw together a short video of that and see how it does?
I have done a couple coding videos. I could probably take a tour through some of the Task Manager source code, since I got permission to do that from Microsoft. That would probably be the most interesting thing to do. Maybe I'll try doing that. I don't know how to make code interesting. We'll see. Maybe people are just curious how it all works.
Christopher 6886. I watch you on 1 3/4 times, and auto captions are fine. Please make a video about using Wireshark to see if DeepSeek phones home. With the best LLMs being only about 80% accurate, how can they have much value when you spend more time validating the output than just doing the work yourself?
Well, if your model is so unreliable that you have to spend more time, then it's probably not a useful model. But I don't find that. Even OpenAI, I mean, it's going to make mistakes, but it's usually right. If you're going to rely on the thing for life or death, then yeah, do your own research. Yeah, I actually will try that. I'm pretty confident that the answer is going to be on the local model that no, it's fine. It doesn't transmit. Now, I'm sure, obviously, if you run the website version, at some point it's going to connect to China, but it could be on, the back end. It does that. So it doesn't prove anything, even if it didn't communicate, but I bet it does. And I'm pretty sure David Bombal did a video on this a couple weeks ago where he tried it on the phone app with a wired adapter. And I think he saw traffic from the phone app to China. And I've read elsewhere that it's not even encrypted. So that's kind of weird.
Comforting.
Yeah. You do things on the cheap, you take some shortcuts. Encryption, that costs money and time.
Yeah, you get what you pay for. Yeah, or not. Stat Phantom. Hey, Dave, wish I found this channel earlier. He's a computer science professor in Australia and is wondering about your opinion on computer science professors teaching students that go into the tech industry. He says he hears a lot about computer science professors being horribly out of touch and never working a proper job. And honestly, he sort of agrees with that, as they're usually researchers and they're on a completely different side of the industry. However, he also believes that this can be a good thing, as they're able to teach you how to learn and how to critically think, which, he believes is at least as important, or some transferable skills there. But he's curious about your thoughts.
I would say computer science is not a trade school, so it's not like you should come out of comp sci degree being fully versed in React and all the latest JavaScript frameworks. What you need are the fundamentals, the operating system skills, the low-level skills, debugging skills, and that's what I'm going to come back to. Actually, I'll just stop and tangentially into that. Is debugging is the area that I think schools, at least when I went to school, they did not teach. You got an assignment, you would write your code, you would have to debug your own code, but that's not what you get as a job when you get out of school. Nobody says, okay, now here's the grand plan, go off, start with void, main, void, and come back when you're done debugging your own code. Generally, you get thrown into a code base of code that was written by people that are probably no longer there, or half of them are around, and half the code is unknown. And you're debugging code that nobody can explain to you. And if you're lucky, you've got the source code. In a lot of cases, if you're doing compatibility work, at Microsoft, when you're debugging app compat for a game that used to work on Windows and all of a sudden doesn't work on Windows, and you're Raymond Chen, you don't have source code to any of this. So that's a very high level of debugging. But even debugging at the source code level, I think we learned DBX or, one of the really old debuggers in a lab session or something, but it wasn't like we took a class on debugging. And I really think there should be a class on debugging and finding defects, preventing defects, that kind of thing, defensive coding.
Is that sort of, I'm trying to word this carefully, I guess, depending on what your needs are too, right? I mean, if you need someone who can just sort of pound out some code or whatever, then a technical school and someone who's learned that code inside out, there's a thing. If it's more the process and the thinking and the problem solving stuff, that's a bit of a different person from maybe a different type of institution, right? So
yeah, if you know what you want to do, and no objection to schools that focus on that. So if you I love SQL, I'm going to be a database guy, go to a school that teaches, primarily that. But if you don't know and you're taking a computer science degree, it's more generalized, and then you're supposed to be able to go from there on your own.
Yeah, and that's where I wanted to be careful that there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to, be a SQL guy, then learn that and be a SQL expert. But if you're going to try and take someone who's a SQL expert and turn them into a computer science project manager person or a problem solver, they may not. That doesn't necessarily compete. Or compute.
Yeah, it's like the difference between a veterinarian and a regular doctor.
Yep.
Which one is better? I mean, the one guy has to deal with 50 different animals in the course of a week, and the other person is doing the same old human thing over and over, or vice versa. He has way more depth of knowledge in human anatomy because he only deals with one. So it's not that one is better than the other. It's just different.
Yeah. Here's another one. So Scotomoto, and this one, I keep calling this one. Dave, there's a new ESP32 P4. Seen it? Any thoughts? Will it
I just saw
LEDs?
Yeah, it should. I just saw some specs on it yesterday. The big thing I saw was 400 megahertz on 2 cores. And I haven't got one yet. I don't know if they're available. All I saw was the specs, because it's funny because I was just wondering, is there a new ESP32 out? It's been a while. And so I looked through the table and I saw 400 megahertz. What? And that's the new one. So, and I think it's got more memory.
How would the price point compare to what the current ones are? Is it going to be 10% more?
Well, I'd say the current ESP32 is cheap like borscht, so they'd be cheap like pierogies. How's that? In other words, I have no idea, because it is their newest chip, so it'll probably be a price premium. But we're normally talking $2 to $5, or maybe I think on the Rovers with the extra memory, I'm paying like $6 per chip on the Mesmerizer, something like that.
It's still somehow sort of like ridiculously affordable for what's in there.
Especially when I was looking today, I found a price list for PDPs in 91, I think. So it's mostly VAX stuff, but they still show the PDP 1173s and stuff. And they're $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 for these setups. And the crazy part is, first of all, they come with a network card that has a 68,000 chip on it that is faster than the PDP-S11 itself. It certainly has more address space at 24 bits. The performance delta is just crazy to me with what you get now at 240 megahertz for $2, as opposed to 16 megahertz. Well, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir. We all know that electronics are cheaper. It's not a revelation, but it still shocks me sometimes.
Crazy. Not much here. Siri is still garbage. So is Alexa. It's interesting, but is it any good? AI is great for sorting data and images. Replacing humans? Not yet.
Yeah, they're not going to replace many humans. They can replace a lot of humans, I think, in certain roles. But I don't think replacing humans is going to be the big thing. I think augmenting humans and giving them the ability to do things they couldn't do before. Now you're a programmer. It's not like you don't have a job anymore, but now you can do things you couldn't do before. So,
yeah, the goal is not for them to replace all humans or even many humans, but aiding them. And there certainly will be human things that are replaced, but
it'll be like the Industrial Revolution. I mean, machines did replace humans, but then those humans got jobs as machinists and oilers and all other kinds of things. So.
Well, weren't computers going to replace all the humans too for a while? I don't know. Like
you just turned out to be big machines that ate paper and.
Well, like, yeah, I mean, just going back to, I've only been, in sort of the office employment world for 30 years, but 30 years ago, there was a receptionist at every corner of these things, and phone calls went to the receptionist at the front desk that then went to the receptionist at the back desk, who wrote the note on a piece of paper and stuck it in a little pigeonhole, and you came back from the pigeonhole and you got that note and you called that guy back and talked to his receptionist and she wrote a pigeon note, and then voicemail came. And then there's no receptionist.
Right.
In this old, building where I started, there would have been 5 receptionists, and now I bet there isn't one. And that's just technology, computerization. So that's.
Yeah, I was thinking that when I had my own company and we had the software business, because at one point we had the millionth customer barbecue, I remember. And just thinking of it, that's a lot of customer data to manage. And I was using Microsoft Access because I wrote the database myself. And it was Excel and Outlook and VB scripting to connect all the apps together. And so you could be in an email from a customer and press some function key and it would look up their email, find them in the database, take you to that customer order, do all that stuff. But it's crazy because you think what they would have had to do to be Sears with 1 million customers in 1964. You've got just an army of file clerks working in a huge place with massive drawers of paper or microfiche or whatever they're doing. And it takes, minutes to hours to pull a customer record. And now it's just F3. Well, that was 20 years ago. So,
yeah, I used that. My wife and I had a little music business for aerobics instructors, and I built the whole thing out of Access to all the invoicing and database and everything. Yep. People would call on a 1-800 number. We could pull them up on the computer. Funny. I think I still have the 3.5-inch floppy that has the whole thing on it. So
back it up.
Yep. Sitting around somewhere. Improvised expletive device, IED, I like to call them. This is certainly a rude question list. You're a good sport, Dave and Glenn. He has a polite question for you, Dave.
Oh, good.
Do you see any use cases for AI as it stands now, based on your unique perspective and experience as super dev?
Any unique applications for it?
Yeah, well, no, he says use cases for AI based on your unique perspective.
Okay.
So I think it's got lots of use cases.
Yeah, I think, for me as a programmer, the biggest thing is coming up with, I'm going to write the overall structure. And then when it comes to, I need a function to do some utility feature, I'm going to ask ChatGPT for that, and then I'm going to read the code and I'm going to look at it. And if I like it, I'm going to keep it and change it and modify it, stick it in my code. I'm still writing the structure and the design and everything else because I don't think ChatGPT and that is there yet. Probably will be in a couple of years. But for now, you're still applying your brain, and it's like you have all these little programmers working for you, and you can run them off and here, go write me a function to do this for me, please. And you write me Charles Simonyi had this concept of the meta programmer, which would be like to one really smart programmer who just told the other programmers what to do, and then he would assemble their pieces into a masterpiece. Nobody wanted to be, anybody but the meta programmer, unfortunately. But this allows you to all be the meta programmer. How's that?
Cool. We've got an example with the city of Vancouver, our invoicing. So invoices come in. They used to go to a pool of clerks who would read the invoice and send it off to the person it was supposed to go to. And we moved to a new model a couple of years ago that had some AI functionality to it. And we were cursing the hell out of the damn thing for the first 6 months. But I tell you, the last year or so, it's figured stuff out, and some of the glitches and little, errors were addressed, and invoices come in, and apparently AI looks at them and figures out the information it needs to see and code it on to the right place, and they show up. And it's not perfect. So they'll still have to go see humans, but it's a vast improved process over what it was before. And when it works really well. So
I'll send you a bill, see if I get paid.
There you go. Yeah. Okay.
I'm back.
Where are we going? Oh yeah, TG 9754. Hi Dave, really enjoy the videos. This is a bit of a long one. I'm really interested in determining if I can create an offline AI system like OpenAI or DeepSeek on one of the small systems available like the Jetson or Nano. So one of his areas of interest is to create a system that can answer Windows tech support questions. He's got a small IT business. He'd like to see if he fed it multiple Microsoft Windows manuals that could be input into that offline AI system to add to its knowledge on a regular basis that he could use to quickly and accurately resolve issues he's presented with from his systems and for clients, Windows servers, and desktops. Thanks in advance. I know you get tons of questions.
No problem. There's two ways you can do it. And I'll tell you both ways. One is with OpenAI and using ChatGPT. And this is, of course, online. And I realize you want offline, so I'll answer that second. But with what I've done with ChatGPT is I've created a custom GPT and I've uploaded about 12 of the deck manuals. So the PTP 1134 manual, the RK05 manual, and I've made sure not just raw PDFs, I've made sure to index them with Adobe Acrobat first so that it can actually access all the text in it. Maybe it can OCR it. Yeah, because if you just give it a raw PDF and it's not OCR'd yet, does it OCR it? I don't know, maybe, but it's going to take time anyway. So that's one way. And then you say, I'm going to work with that session and it's got all that knowledge. So it uses that as it builds its answers. And that's called RAG data, retrieval augmented generation. And I did an episode called How to Feed Your Own Data to a Local LLM. And that will give you all, or not all, it'll give you most of the technical steps you need to get started, hopefully. And that is where you would say, load in your Windows manuals, maybe FAQs, a bunch of any of your previous, if you can, email transcripts of customers, and it will read all those and analyze them and incorporate them into your answers. And in fact, I wouldn't do it if you have customer emails in the database. You could, if you didn't have any private data in the database, you could expose the answers if it was just based on manuals and so forth to the web as a custom query for your customers, that kind of thing.
So is there a way to feed it that information, sort of create your own separate private little piece of that, but still have it connected? Or do you have to sort of?
Well, you can do it offline or online. Yeah, I don't know how to do both. Like, I don't know how to feed you. You can't just give ChatGPT local data that the servers can't see or vice versa. So yeah, you're kind of either on or off.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. Dougal 4144. How does one go about distilling a big model to a smaller one? And when will we see specialized LLMs that concentrate on a specific niche?
I think you probably already do. That's how they shrink the models, maybe by feeding them and specializing them on the most common questions that they think that the AI is going to receive and training it on the answers that the bigger models would produce. So you say, here's my top 1,000 questions that I want this API to be able to answer. And I'm just going to keep pumping the big AIs with that question, analyzing its thought process, building on that. I obviously don't understand that. I'm not a researcher. I don't understand the technical details necessarily of how they do it. But doing a specialized one makes a lot of sense because you could just keep querying it about PDP-11 stuff. And you could take the 671 billion parameter model, like let's say it has all the information. It doesn't, but let's say it has all that. And you just ask it millions of questions about PDP-11 stuff and train your small model on just that. And it's not going to know jack about skin conditions or psoriasis, but it's going to know everything about the PDP stuff.
And so he says, when will we see specialized LLMs? There must be some that are going already, aren't there?
There's certainly medical ones. I know there's a couple of medical AIs where they've taken something like 300,000, because every doctor now transcribes even their meetings with you, or at least files notes, right? And so those are available for purchase and for research and so on. So they've had like 300,000 patient cases or patient visits in this database, and the AI is trained on that. And so when you ask it a question, it has the benefit of it's been through 300,000 patient interviews and seen what the doctor had to say about it. So it feels like that should be powerful.
Yep. Kenny JP. Hey, Dave, can you have C++ without C? Can you have a virtual machine without the physical machine? Can you have DeepSeek without those AIs that went before?
No.
But I've classified that one as chicken and egg.
Yeah, so obviously you need a big model to train the distilled model on and so on. C, you can have C without C++, but you can't have C++ without C. And in fact, the first compilers like CFront from AT&T was a converter that would take your C++ and convert it into raw C. That doesn't exist anymore. That's not how they do it. But so it took your C++ and you could, in fact, sort of tangential. The Windows shell at Microsoft was written in C, but it was all OLE and COM, which uses COM objects, which are C++ objects. And so they would hand code the V tables into a jump table at the beginning, and that's how C lays them out. And because the binary was the same between COM and C++, it all just worked. And then as they later migrated to full COM, and then we went to C++ in some of the code, it all just worked because it was C code that could come along. So I might not have all the details right there, but that's kind of how I remember it.
Yeah. And another Larry Sanders. I like Larry. To your knowledge, does Microsoft still support their legacy operating systems in any capacity, like Windows 1, 2, 3, 9?
No.
Okay.
As far as I know, not at all. So, I mean, they did a patch to XP for security many years after XP support was actually done and over with. And they do some extended updates, but no, not for anything that old.
Okay. He then goes on to say, do you think like software like that should or could be free or even so far as say open source?
Well, I could see them maybe open sourcing it, but I don't know what benefit that serves, because what are you going to do then? Run the old one because you can run it open source? So,
yeah, I think that's sort of the like maybe why, it's just for interest's sake, I guess, so people can play around with it for sort of it's not going to be of much benefit to them. So therefore, why don't they let us do that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, you could open source XP and people could try to make all the security updates to it, but then you could also just upgrade to the next version of Windows. And I guess that's what they would prefer you to do. So,
3D printing meathead. Oh, sorry. I put it in the wrong meathead. 3D printing meathead. I think that's supposed to be one word, not meat and head. So you're legitimately Network Chuck's dad or illegitimately?
Oh, I'd have to see a picture of his mom to know.
See if you remember her. No.
Yeah.
See if
be at least 35. How old is Network Chuck? He's got to be 35, right? Because I've been monogamous for at least 35 years. So.
At least 35, yeah. Next question, Glenn. Move along. The real Albie. Does anyone think a Dave's Garage stubby cooler would be cool? I'd buy one, and it'll save Dave having to hide the brand on his tin.
I don't hide the brand. It's Kona Big Wave from, it's Liquid Aloha. So we had a summer place in Lahaina that burned. It wasn't ours. It was just a place we went to all the time. And that's where I found Kona. And so now I drink Kona. But I don't drink it all the time.
So I've read this question. I guess I never sort of looked at the second part of it or never thought about it. No, I didn't look at the second part. Just read the first part. I'm thinking, stubby cooler. What's this guy want? Like a mini fridge? A Dave's
That's what I thought, like put stubby
fridge?
Beer in it.
Like, mini fridge. Okay, whatever. We'll ask the question about the mini fridge. And then like just for putting your can in. Oh, now I get it. Now
I've never heard stubby cooler, but I got it from context.
I didn't get the context until after I'd read the entire question. So, yeah, that's what I'm here just to entertain myself. Hey, it's J22. Odd number of heads. One of those, and we had this a lot when we were talking about the heads on that disk drive. There's an odd number.
Oh, right.
So he's one of the guys that pointed out. I said one of those surfaces is most likely has a servo code. He said a servo platter will improve accuracy and often used for reliability and increase storage density. And there's at least a half dozen folks that pointed that out or suggested that was the odd number.
Okay, so for context, what this is, we noticed that there was one drive that I was using had 11 heads. And normally you have a platter and a head on each side. So why would you only have 11? You should have an even number of heads. And what they're saying is maybe one of those heads, maybe the top one, bottom one, whichever one, but one of the 12 heads actually has physically 12 heads, and one of those has a constant track on it where the platter is probably like a square wave or a sine wave or some kind of clock signal that it can use to know exactly where it is on the track. And I didn't know drives did that, but I can see how that would massively increase the positional reliability and so on. Seems a shame to dedicate 10% of the disk space to it, but They're slightly less than 10.
Yep.
8%.
Math. Jim Bond. Question. Other than eBay, what are your sources for PDP parts? Building a PDP 1173, and I'm sure I will need stuff. So where do you go to fire up the cannon?
Well, I'm pretty reliant on people starting projects like building 1173s, getting bored or stuck, and then they send them to me. Please send me your system. Mostly eBay. I did have one, I can't remember his name now, unfortunately. He was in Australia, so you know who you are, Australian man. He sent me a PDP 1173. Well, the PDP 1173 was from Australia. He shipped it from like San Francisco because he moved with it. And so I got it, and I went through the power supply, replaced all the refa caps. I had it looking pristine, and I plugged it in and nothing. And I fought with this thing. I'm testing it and trying to figure it out for many hours before I remembered. Australia, eh? 220. So then I'm like, I'm screwed. It's a 220. But then I found there's actually a little switch that's not labeled on the mine, but it's like a little butterfly, and you can slide it back and forth, and it booted right up. So,
yeah, at least it was going that way, not the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah. You wouldn't want your 110 PDP shipped to Australia and they fire it up, or the UK.
Yeah, I wonder what
Europe.
happens if you have your voltage switching.
Magic smoke?
Voltage setting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Try it. Let us know if you're in Europe or Australia.
I've been in your shop and stuff goes. Yeah. And
what did I cook when you were here?
It was just the capacitor on that one machine.
Oh, the super pat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was smelly and smoky.
I mean, it wasn't disastrous and it wasn't tragic. Unfortunate. But it sure got our attention quickly.
Yeah.
That sizzle and smoke. Mark Teague, 88, 89. Whatever happened to the Porsche 959 Bill Gates purchased at Satin Customs for all those years? I guess this is waiting for the 20-year or whatever import.
Yeah, it had to sit in a customs warehouse for a long time. And then I believe he got it in under the exhibition clause where you can say, I'm going to bring a car in, but I'm not going to drive it. It's to show what it shows. And this was something they added, a clause they added later. And I think he imported it under those rules. And now you may be able to drive it because it's old enough. But because you know what? A 2000 is now a antique. 25 years.
Yeah. So we've been antique for 2 of those antique periods then.
And I'm a collector version.
And you don't need a front plate. That's why you can't see it on the front. Yeah.
That's right. I got nothing on the front to identify me.
Last question from Kenny JP. Damn you for not choosing me as the winner. I'll now tell the school children that their study buddy has been stolen by the big bad Microsoft man. Love the channel, Dave. Keep up the good work. Question mark added, so you hopefully see this. So it worked.
Yeah, I've tried to give away the Orin Nano signed by Jensen Wong twice now, and both times we've selected a winner and not been able to reach or get a hold of that person. So,
they haven't reached out to get a hold of you.
Well, we've announced the winner in the episode, and then they never materialized, and I've replied to their comment, and they never followed up, and so we'll see. If you are that person, I don't have that name handy, but it's in the other episodes. Please get in contact with me by this weekend or something, because otherwise I'm going to give it away again.
Yep. And
the perpetual giveaway. Dave's always giving away this one.
How are we going to give it away the second or third time?
And then they all jump out of the woodwork. Hey, it's all mine.
Yeah. Someone will find a way, and it'll come from the same results, I'm assuming. Yeah.
If worst case, I'll buy a second one, and the second one will be signed by Dave or something. There you go.
Whoa, an even better one.
I'll get a gold marker. Not Neil deGrasse Tyson's fancy purple fountain pen. Nothing like that. But
Whoa. Yeah. We're not crazy. Yeah.
The golden Sharpie. I got black. I got silver.
There you go.
Close enough.
Yeah. Close enough. That's all I got for you, Dave. That's all for this
Well, I'm
week,
showing you marker colors, so I must be done too. So thanks for joining us out here at this shop today. Thanks for helping me out, Glenn. And we'll see you all next time. Make sure you subscribe to this channel if you don't actually see this episode very often. And you're not subscribed to Dave's Attic, you'll want to do that because this is not Dave's Garage. This is the podcast channel, which is Dave's Attic. So make sure you're subscribed, turn on the bell, bring the thing, share it with somebody, like it, all that stuff. Appreciate that, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks. This little chair will be waiting for one of you, and a rocking chair for another who likes to rock, and a big armchair for 2 to curl up in. All next time on Dave's Garage.